Welcome to the Sales Career Podcast. This is your host, Kevin Hopp. Whether you're an executive, sales leader, or just getting your career in sales started, I'm here to help you read between the lines and hear the real stories that you can't get from a resume or from a LinkedIn profile, all designed to help you shape your own sales career. Let's dive right into today's episode and see what we can learn. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Sales Career Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Hopp. My guest today is a 6-time sales leader, 3-time founder, 3-time author, and is currently working with a few different businesses here. Leese Consulting, Surf and Sales, among many, many others. You guys probably already follow him on LinkedIn. If you don't, here's your opportunity to learn and follow him now. Everybody, please welcome the great and powerful Leese.
Oh, what an intro. The great and powerful. I sound like a wizard.
You look like one too. It actually matches.
Yeah, I'm getting old, so I'm going to look like Gandalf the Grey here pretty soon.
I love it, man. You buck all the traditions around what you're supposed to look like. I think why don't we kick this off with the first time I ever heard your name or saw you in person, right? So you and I have a little bit of a connection here. That I've told you about this before, but you might not recall. You definitely didn't look into the BDR pit and look at me, but I looked out of the BDR pit and looked at you. So you walked in to interview at a SaaS company that I was working at, and we had a bunch of dudes coming through. They were interviewing to be VPs of sales at this particular SaaS company in San Diego, and they all were wearing suits and ties and button downs, and they had their not quite briefcases, but they're professional looking things, and they carried themselves a certain way. Some of them had like the leather, binder thing they were carrying. And then Leese walks in. And when you walked in, you were wearing a flannel and a trucker hat.
Sounds right. That sounds right.
And all of us in the pit, the BDRs were like, who's that? Like, what? This guy? And then people were like, yeah, he's interviewing to be VP of sales. I'm like, VP of sales wearing a flannel? And that was the first time I was like, this guy does it different. So talk to me a little bit about that. Like, you do things differently. Why is that?
I don't know, man. I just feel like pretty comfortable in my own skin and know who I am, and never wanted to try to be something that I'm not. I also have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder and kind of try to rage against certain societal norms or what have you. Why does every VP of sales need to wear a Patagonia vest and have finely coiffed hair with gel in it and, wear their little man purse and all that kind of stuff? Like, it's just not me, I've been through a lot of stuff in my life to get to this point. And a lot of that stuff that I went through just made me like not care at all about all this pomp and circumstance, and, just be who I am. And hopefully that authenticity, shines through. And then the work product that I do, hopefully speaks louder than anything else. Right.
Yeah.
And, at this point, I've been operating this way, so long, and I've survived, being a VP of sales a number of times and everything that, being a little different is like become part of my brand, if you will, You mentioned flannel shirt and trucker hat, and it's just like, well, that sounds like my uniform pretty much, so.
And now that you work from home, it's shorts too, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. Listen, I mean, the first sales jobs that I ever had, so this is like the first 5 years that I was in sales as a rep, as a sales manager, and as a VP of sales. The first 2 companies I worked at, you had to wear a suit and tie every single day in the Bay Area. Every single day on the sales floor, right? Man, really? It was a lot. It was a lot. Even back, this is like 2004 to 2008, something like that. And I remember saying at one point, like, this is ridiculous. I think we would all do way better if we were just comfortable. This is way before video chat, so nobody saw you at all. It's just literally over the phone, right? So I sort of said, if I ever get to a place where I have enough clout, if you will, to dictate our culture and all this. I am never putting on this fucking suit ever again, And luckily I got to that point and, I think I had a lot of suits and now I'm down to like 2 or 3 and I wear them once a year, when somebody gets married or somebody dies.
Weddings and funerals. That's the only time I wear.
Man. That's about it.
I don't know about you, man. I have to try my suit on like a week before at least. Because I'm like, shoot, does this gonna fit? Like, I've been in the gym
I definitely experienced that in the last couple of years for sure.
Yeah. Crazy. Well, I read your book, Addicted to the Process, and you talked a little bit about kind of your origin story of how you got into sales in the first place, how you ended up there. I think the audience, those who don't know you, those that haven't read the book, and if you haven't read the book, go get the book. It's on Amazon. It's an incredible read. Short, sweet, and to the point, too. It's not a novel. I'm not a big reader, and I read it. So, I'm a big listener. I'm a big podcast, big video guy, but not a big book reader. So I think the audience here would really benefit from hearing a little bit of that origin story. Did you come right out of college at 21 and jump on the sales floor?
No, total opposite of that. I played a bunch of sports in high school. I played 2 sports in college for 4 years and had a psychology major and a religious studies minor. And no brain or mind for career or making money, certainly nothing to do with sales whatsoever. And ended up going to graduate school, getting a master's degree in learning and instructional technology. And 22 years old, right before my 23rd birthday, I got super sick. And I proceeded basically to spend the next 4 years in the hospital fighting for my life. I had multiple autoimmune diseases and organ troubles, and I had my large intestine removed. I've had 9 major surgeries, 4 major abdominal surgeries, life-threatening situation for a number of years that just absolutely wrecked my life and altered the course of what my life was going to be, forever. On top of all that, being in pain and in the hospital for 4 years straight, I'm being fed pain medicine all day. So not much of a shocker. By the time I'm kind of healed up, now I have this drug problem that I have to kick. So, I go through 4 years of medical challenges and then having to kick off dope. And now I'm 27 years old and I've never had a job before. I mean, wow. Little jobs, right? Like coaching a tennis camp, coaching a soccer team, this kind of stuff, getting paid to play sports, right? But no, no sales job, no business professional job, never worked at McDonald's, never worked at the Gap, nothing. Never was a waiter or bartender. So I had no idea what I was going to do with my life whatsoever. All I knew was that I was 27. I had a bunch of friends who had been working for 5-6 years now and who were way ahead of me. And I needed to do something where I felt like I could catch up, right? And I had been deprived of being able to do anything for so long that my sense of urgency was just like through the roof, and I had a deep appreciation for any opportunity that was going to come my way. And I'm a hyper competitive person, had always been, right? And one of my buddies suggested to me that I try to get a sales job. He had been in sales for a few years and was like, you're super competitive. You were always a leader and our captain. Like, there might be something here for you. So I said, all right, well, I got nothing else. I don't know what else I'm going to do. So I picked an early stage startup because, again, I felt like I had to make up for lost time. And I thought, well, if I do well here, I could advance faster and whatnot. And that's what happened, man. So I got a inside sales job, selling online lead generation tools to real estate agents and automotive dealers in 2004. And that was how my sales career got started, total accident and probably familiar to a lot of the audience because so many salespeople just fall into the profession,
Yeah, it's been really interesting for me, interviewing so many people on LinkedIn that kind of have a platform and an audience and people that have these careers, right? Like the whole point of this podcast is to tell these career stories. And what I'm learning is that very few, basically nobody, wakes up, when they're graduating college and says, I'm going to be in sales. Sales is where I'm going to make it happen. But those that are out there doing well are the ones that make the most of the situation. And you touched on something there that I think is really interesting. I'd like to hear a little bit more about. So you chose an early stage startup because you felt like you could gain ground. Do you think that people that, because like when I was at UC Santa Barbara, Oracle recruited heavily. Do you know what I mean? And like the people that got jobs at Oracle would post on LinkedIn like incoming Oracle rep and stuff. And I remember like having classes with some of these guys and looking over and being like, that guy's going to go work for Larry Ellison. And like, he got the nod and I didn't, because I applied, everybody applied and they only chose a certain amount of people. So do you think that an early stage startup's better to get your sales career started as opposed to a big dog, like a Salesforce, like one of those?
Well, I do. I don't know that that's the right answer for everybody though. Yeah. There's a case to be made that if you go to a big, huge company, you might be better prepared and better trained because a place like Oracle's got a really good like sales training program and that kind of stuff. But my grand design was never to be a salesperson. My grand design was to just use it as a stepping stone and a means to an end. My grand design was always, I got to find a way to, be in charge. And
right.
So I quickly kind of started asking around, like, what's the highest level sales role that there is? Oh, VP of sales is the highest level role. There was no such thing as CRO at the time. So, I'd only been a sales rep for like a month and I'm like, okay, I need to be a VP of sales. Like I got to make my way all the way to the top, and then after being the VP of sales once or twice, I was like, okay, my new grand design is I need to work for myself. And how do I make that happen in a way that works for my lifestyle and my family and that kind of thing, So it was always, I was always thinking farther ahead, I guess is one way to think about it. And everything that I was doing, and on some level, everything that I do now is just a stepping stone to help me get to the next place. And for me, going to an early stage company, I thought, okay, perform well, have opportunity to get promoted as the company grows and scales. They're going to need people. They hire from internally first. Hopefully, like I can rise up the ranks and shave a few years off my career here. If I go to Oracle, I might be a rep for 3, 4, 5 years before I have a chance to be a manager, let alone a VP. And I went to this early stage company. I was a sales rep for 7 months, Kevin. That's it. My whole entire life.
Really? 7 months is
7 months.
You carried an individual bag?
That's it. Yeah.
Love it.
Then I became a sales manager. I was a sales manager for like 6 months. And then I was a senior sales manager. And then I was a director. And then I left that company after 2.5 years. So I had 2.5 years total work experience when I got my first VP of sales job. I just think there's no way that happens if I go to a larger company.
I don't think so. I really don't think so. That's inspiring. Jeez. To those out there thinking that you have to follow this lengthy progression, that it's going to take 7, 8, 10 years to get to wherever they do want to go, whether that's VP, whether that's director, whether that's manager. So I'm interested in something here. It seems like 7 months in the role is not a long time. How did you know that leadership was what you wanted to do? Because when I was a very junior sales, when I was an SDR, we didn't have a VP, right? You know this company. We didn't have a sales leader. There was no sales leader at MindTouch. It was just BDRs, AEs, and we all roll up to the CEO. And the CEO would talk to us about Eagle sales reps. And he's like, if you guys want to be top 1%, this is what you need to do. And there's only one guy really at MindTouch that made all the money. I still stay in touch with him to this day. Now he's a VP, but he was like the guy. And like half the BDR team was torn. Half the BDR team wanted to be him. And half the BDR team said, I want to go into like leadership. Like I want to be like a VP of sales. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, like, I don't know if I have what it takes to be a Lone Eagle top 1% sales rep. Like, and I don't know if I would like that as much. but I do know that I like leading people, but I didn't really have any of that like role modeling going on to see what that looks like. But how did you make the decision that like leadership was what you wanted to do instead of being that guy who's, you know, named accounts at Oracle or Amazon pulling in $2 million a year doing that?
I mean, I had been a leader my whole life, frankly, and specifically around sports, whether it was soccer, tennis, basketball, baseball, everything that I had done. So it just kind of, it's natural for me to try to assume a leadership kind of a role inside of the team. And when I, you know, first started making phone calls, honestly, I was like, this sucks. Like, I did not like cold calling at all.
Cold calling sucks.
Yeah, that was what I thought. This sucks. The very first day that I made calls, I mean, I felt like the phone weighed 1,000 pounds, and I was terrified to pick it up. You know, I drove home that day from the office and called my wife on the way home. It was like, I'm not going back to that job. It's fucking horrible. I'm never going to be any good at it. You know, and luckily I stuck with it. But I was like, this is brutal. How do I get out of this role and get into a role where I just like help other people do this? And the only thing I could think of was, I better get so good at this shit that I never have to do it again. So it was almost like, I'm going to put myself through hell so I can come out the other side. Right? Yep. And when I got good really quick, and I ended up being the number one rep and breaking all the sales records and kept breaking my own records and all this. And, you know, there was no real sales leadership, no process for coaching or development. And I remember telling the CEO, like, hey, what do I got to do to be the sales manager here? Because none of these people are being told and taught what to do. And like, I could teach everybody what's working for me. Yep. You know, and then, you know, I realized I got more fulfillment out of helping other people close deals than closing deals on my own. And then, you know, I'd get tempted a little bit because I'd have friends who stayed with individual contributor roles who moved up and you know, they started making 300-400K, and they'd be like, you're an idiot, Scott. You're working so hard and you're making less money than us, and you have to manage all these deadbeats, and I don't have to do anything. I'm working from home in my underwear and making more money than you. You know, how friends do. Yep. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm going to pass you. You know, you're ahead of me right now, but like, you have no big opportunity for like a liquidity event or whatever. And, you know, I'm building this like army of a network and all this just like different kind of stuff, and getting experience in leadership and behind the scenes of how to build and run companies and all this. Like, I'm gonna catch you. You know, and sure enough, you know, that's what's ended up happening. But I knew real quick, like, no, I don't want to be an individual contributor.
Right. It's interesting. I have that same sort of conversation with a buddy of mine who is he's what you call an overlay. He works at a big European software company. And as an overlay, he's a subject matter expert on a certain division of their software. So he is a sales rep that has a 6-figure salary, and he gets called by other people when people want to buy his stuff. Like a rep has a deal, then they call him. So he's making like $200,000+ a year, and he's golfing like twice a week. And he's texting me like, hey man, do you want to like go to the course? I'm like, dude, I'm hustling over here. Like, especially, you know, last like few months here, Hopp Consulting Group, all in. Therefore, this is my family. When I wake up every day and I come to my laptop, I can't, you know, rest of my laurels for 1 minute. Like, I got to hustle. I got to make it fucking happen. So I identify with that feeling, Scott. And I love you.
I feel that way even now. You know, I mean, I know what it's like to have the rug pulled out from under me when I'm in my prime. And so I think all the time, like, all of this shit can go away at any moment, you know? And so I better get it now while I can. You know, I'm not trying to squander or waste, you know, my time or any of my, you know, opportunities. Right. And maintaining that level of intensity and sense of urgency and competitiveness. Even like it's very hard to do. Most people can't do it, let alone do it for, year after year after year. Right. But if you can do it, it's a huge differentiator. If you can do it, you set yourself apart, big time. And that, that guy's making a good living and, not stressing too much and playing a lot of golf and everything like that. But, some of us have different designs on what their ideal life, is and what they want to leave behind to others and what they want their legacy to be and things like that. Right.
For sure.
So no disrespect to that guy, but that's not what I want to do with my life yet.
Yep. But to your point that you were saying, like, are there days when he texts me and I go, oh
yeah, sure.
Like I do want to golf on a Wednesday. I really do.
Yeah.
Do I want to be at Torrey Pines right now? It's 10 minutes from my house and the top 100 golfers in the world are all there playing the course. Do I want to go skip work and walk the course? Fuck yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
but I can't,
Sometimes you got to sacrifice a little bit near term for, bigger outcome long term.
That's right. Let's talk about that for a little bit. Like, this is a concept that I've been trying to wrap my brain around more and more. Like, if you listen to enough, Gary Vee, Grant Cardone, influencer stuff, like I take a little bit from every influencer that I kind of follow, right? And that includes your LinkedIn posts. That includes, Josh Braun LinkedIn posts. Whoever's out there when I'm taking in this info, what I keep trying to remind myself is doing the hard stuff. If there's something that I think I have to do that's really hard, and I have this instinct to kind of push it away or not do it or pick up the phone or whatever it is, I think that's what you need to do. Like, do the hard stuff to get to where you want to go. So talk to me a little bit, like when you were in these companies as a VP of sales, did you run into situations where you either like inherited a team like that or you built a team and you had to build that culture of like, let's get it done? Like what was it like becoming a VP?
I had to build every single one. I mean, every single time I became a VP of sales, it was with a super early stage company. I'm talking like pre-revenue or very little revenue in one case, and having to figure out how to sell the product myself, get the messaging right, bringing on the first couple reps, teaching them how to sell it, then starting to operationalize things and then scaling it out. That is a painful process that most people, when they go through it once, don't ever want to do it again. Yeah. But I really was attracted to that grind, that initial like first couple of years, the kind of 0 to 20 million sprint. And so that just became my niche. I was the guy willing to go back into the mud, again. Like once I got out of the mud, I started to get uncomfortable, and I'm like, what's this? I got 9 hours of meetings today. What is this bullshit? This is not what I want to be doing. Right. Yeah. And so putting myself in that position where I had to wear every hat that there is, run at 100 miles per, do all of those difficult things, your tolerance for things goes way up, right? Like work ethic, how much time you spend on stuff, patience for solving particular problems, dealing with, no resources or very limited resources and having to figure everything out on your own. This is way pre-community and pre-social networks and all this stuff. Like I just had to figure this shit out on my own, trial and error. But you learn a lot and you learn it fast, in doing it that way. Right. And now I just try to help other people who are going through that same thing for the first time or who are in it right now, learn from some of the mistakes that I made and do some of the things that I did that worked, and just try to tee them up for success. And so that's what I get most fulfillment out of now, imparting my, experiences and whatever I've learned onto other people and then seeing them succeed. Like that's more fulfilling to me than me closing, my own deal right now.
Right. And that's actually an interesting thing. My mother-in-law doesn't have any idea what sales is, right? So my father-in-law is an orthopedic surgeon. If anyone out there knows orthopedic surgeons, they're a certain type of person, Love my in-laws. They're great people. They, it's tough for them that I'm in sales, that I, Kevin, what do you do? What? Oh, you're not the same company you were last year? What? Oh, it's another company? Like that. Those are the questions I get all the time. Like, why do I change jobs so much? Why?
Yeah.
Do I consulting? It's really hard for them to even wrap their head around like what I do to make money. And my mother-in-law, when she was here, because I have a young baby, I have a young daughter, and when she was here watching the baby one day, I was coaching SDRs on Zoom, and I was doing this whole thing and like teaching them about how to use the CRM, but then also how to like take what you learn from one conversation and tee up the next conversation, like a referral thing. And I went through this whole thing, and afterwards I closed the laptop and I go get some water, and she's like, "You're a great teacher." Like I was enthralled in what you were saying, and you weren't talking to me. And that was the first time that anyone had ever in my entire life told me, like, "You're a good teacher." And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, that's just what I do. Like, that was easy. But I never seen it from that perspective of, dude, you're teaching people. And she said, were the people listening, were they engaged? I was like, yeah, they all said that they got it and they were excited, and they're on and about their day. And like, it was a successful client engagement for me. But it's interesting that I'm starting to learn that about myself too. Like, I really, really like the coaching aspect of what I do, of helping other people get to it. And I had never realized that I had a knack for it. Like, I never wanted to be a teacher, like,
and yet
it's not.
Here you are.
Here
I
am
teaching people for a living.
Yeah, that is what I do now. It's teaching people how to do outbound. I guess it's just like, you got to teach the right thing. Like, I wouldn't want to be a history teacher or a math teacher. Good Lord, I'd be the worst math teacher in the world. I am so bad at math. Like, I can't wait till my daughter comes home with math homework. I'm going to say, talk to your mom, who has a graduate degree from USC. Like, it's not me, but I will help you write your essay if you need that. That's my strength. That's my gift, so to speak, here. Awesome. Well, Scott, you've done so many different things in your career here. Like, what are some of the things that if someone's looking at your LinkedIn, like you're a big time figure on LinkedIn. Okay, let's just say it. Because you have the maximum amount of connections. Is that still true?
Yeah.
Like, maxed out all the way to the right on the meter.
30,000 is the most connections that they allow you to have. And then you have a follower count that goes, I think, infinitely above that. But yeah.
Yeah. So when someone looks at your LinkedIn, they see advisor here, VP of sales here. What aren't they going to get?
What aren't they going to get?
What aren't they going to get from looking at your LinkedIn that you think that would be really important for them to understand about Scott Leese's journey so far, about how you got to where you are?
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I guess that it didn't happen overnight. I mean, some of the timeline was accelerated to get into a VP of sales role, but I did that a half dozen times before I fully went out on my own. And in this day and age, listen, I see people posting shit all day, every day, and they're like, yeah, I was an SDR for 8 months and then an AE for 6 months, and now I run my own sales consulting business. And I just look at it and I'm like, who the fuck is going to hire that person? People do. I don't know how, but people do, I guess, or they wouldn't be in business. But so I think people maybe just people might not grasp like how much blood, sweat, and tears went into getting to the place that, I'm at now. And I've done the work. There's a lot of people who like to talk about what to do and haven't necessarily done it too much, or maybe they did it one time and, had a good run and kind of cashed out, and that's that. It's a whole nother thing to do it, I think, as many times as I did, and people maybe don't see that. They don't go back far enough on the resume, so to speak. right? And they just maybe look at it at first glance and they're like, okay, this guy runs multiple companies. He's an advisor, like 24 companies. Like I should do all of that. That's what I should do. Like, what? I focused on being a really good VP of sales for 15 years before I did any of this other stuff. Right? And I think maybe people don't see that.
That's true, because it's hard. You have like 40 jobs listed on LinkedIn, so it's a lot of scrolling.
Yeah, you gotta go pretty far down to get to the VP of sales W-2 jobs. Yeah.
Yeah, back to your days of when you were grinding. Wow. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we could probably talk all day. Like, this is we're scratching the surface here. I'd love to have you back on here in a year, 6 months, something like that, and see if we can't round out more of the story around your current, like, what's going on, like Thursday night sales, for instance. Like, I went to the first 3 or 4 Thursday night sales, and I remember it being such a weird time because it was right in the heat of COVID, like right when COVID shut the world down, and nothing was going on. And then it was like on LinkedIn, Scott posted like, "Hey, we're gonna do this thing with Amy Volas, and we're gonna, network on Thursday nights." And I was like, "Wow, what a way to connect people!" And now you have it turned into a whole thing, right? Where you guys have met in person and you get sponsors, and it's really incredible. And Surf and Sales, right? Like, it's something that I'm trying to stack pennies in my piggy bank to make it to Surf and Sales one day. Might be the coolest sales conference of all time.
Thanks, appreciate that.
So
one of the things that people, and yourself included, can and should do is you look for something that you are good at and or enjoy doing, and that there's a hole in the market for, right? And rather than overthink it, you just go for it, So here's what I know about you, for example. You live in beautiful San Diego. The weather is good 300 something days of the year, and you love to play golf. Do you know how many salespeople and business professionals play golf? So at some point, you could just rip off Surf and Sales and do Golf and Sales, right? Give it some other kind of fancy name and put on an event, and bang, there you go. When COVID and the pandemic first started, I just looked around and thought, all these salespeople no longer have a happy hour to go to. Right. So I wonder if I can attract some people to have a virtual happy hour, right? A silly little idea, and it becomes something much larger. So you see a need, fill a need, and don't overthink it too much. I think some people would have paused and thought, okay, well, how am I going to make this a business? Like, what are we going to do? How am I going to structure it? I'm like, I don't know what we're going to do. We're just going to show up. We're going to shoot the shit. I'm going to answer some questions, see what happens, right? So, and what you end up doing is you end up marrying some of your passions together, which is an activity that you like, a discipline and a profession that you love, and a way to earn income. And I think that's a sweet spot that so many people are trying to get to,
Absolutely. I do think about that. I have thought about that exact thing. Stay tuned. I'm actually kind of working on a project for that. Like, that would be so perfect. What if I could make money by putting on golf tournaments and like play and like network and be out and like golf? Like, that would be, if nothing else, it'd be like the coolest side hustle, right? Like, totally. The coolest side hustle for a sales consultant like me.
Yeah.
Incredible. Okay, well, Scott, let's wrap it up here. I don't want to burn people's ears for too long, but the 3 questions that I ask everybody. The first one, really interested to hear your answer. So the first question is, Scott, what's the biggest commission check you've ever gotten?
Biggest commission check as a rep, as a manager, as a VP, or as a business owner?
Let's go with the biggest one-time check that you earned from doing like sales activities type stuff. Yeah.
Biggest commission check I ever earned as a rep is probably like 20-something thousand. Biggest as a manager is not much more than that, probably 25 to 30. Biggest as a VP is probably closer to 40 to 50. Biggest one-time check I've ever got is 170 something thousand overall.
170 in one check is a lot.
On one
of
check.
money.
On one check, yeah.
In some states, they call that a house.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, in California, they call that a partial down payment.
Down payment. Yeah. That's
partial.
most of a down payment.
Partial, Kevin. Partial.
I'm very well aware. I own land in San Diego County. It was not cheap. NOT cheap.
Yeah.
Crazy. I love it. Cool. So the next question is, doesn't have to be a sales job. Doesn't have to be what you're doing today. What has been your favorite job that you've had throughout your whole career?
Probably a soccer coach, to be honest with you. I have dreams and aspirations of, in a couple more years, cashing everything out and just going and coaching a high school soccer team for 10, 15, 20 years and, doing what I love with sports as well as coaching and kind of developing young human beings and whatnot. So probably that. And I haven't done that other than coaching my kids' teams. I mean, I haven't done that in a paid capacity since I was probably 21 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be really cool, huh? To be a full-time soccer coach.
Listen, I would quit what I'm doing right now if any professional soccer teams want to hire me as a coach.
Look,
off I go.
Modern day Ted Lasso over here, man.
Off I go. Yeah. Well, except I actually played soccer, so I would know what I'm talking about.
You would, but it would be the same kind of funky concept. Instead of coaching football, it'd be like, let's take this the ultimate VP of sales, and put him in.
Yeah. Well, you know what I'd be good at, Kevin? I'd be good at recruiting. I'd be good at culture and team building. I'd be good at data and process, right? A lot of the things are applicable. Motivation, care and concern for your team, right? Support.
Yeah,
things are
leadership.
Very transferable skills, right?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Maybe fundraising. Secret bonus. Maybe I might be pretty good with boosters.
I bet you would. Awesome.
Imagine getting a cold call from me, Kevin, asking you to donate to your alumni. Hey, Kevin, how's it going, man? The golf team could really use your support.
Look, the golf team.
You already wrote me a check. It might have been a $4 check, but you wrote me a check.
Right. Yeah, the golf team at UCSB did not let me on. I didn't make the cut, so I probably wouldn't donate there, but I donated anywhere else.
There you go. Yeah. It's good to see that you're as petty as I am. I like that.
Exactly. So, last question. You might have just answered it again with answering the second question there, but the last question is: let's say money didn't matter. You don't need any money. What are you going to do with your time? What would you do?
I already told you about my kind of weird dream to be a high school soccer coach. But beyond that, honestly, I'm looking forward to just traveling around and surfing as many different places, that I've never been and getting some good exercise and just, spending my golden years roaming the earth and catching waves and probably still try to find a way to be helpful to some people as best I can.
It sounds like you should be a high school coach, because what high school coaches do, they work, 9 months of the year. Then you could have the summers off to travel, go to Puerto Escondido or go to.
Oh, great. Yeah, it sounds great. Money when money's no object, I'm all in on this plan.
I love it. What if? That'd be a great world. Well, Scott, thank you so much for your time. It really does mean a lot to me and to the community of everyone who listened to this. I'm sure there's a lot of really, really valuable takeaways here. How can people connect with you? How can people learn from you? How can people buy from you? Cool. Your turn to plug whatever you want.
Well, the easiest way to get in touch with me is probably just LinkedIn and keep abreast of all the things I got going on. You can check out surfandsales.com to learn more about our sales conference. You can check out the Surf and Sales podcast. You can go every Thursday night. We have a virtual sales happy hour. Go to thursdaynightsales.com to register for that. I run a Patreon group with over 500 sales leaders and business professionals in it. We do trainings every Tuesday night. And, on and on and on. You always find me somewhere, Kevin.
Yeah, you are out there.
And I respond. If anybody messages me, I'm very responsive. So you'll be hearing back from me.
Yeah, you haven't reached that level yet. Or not that you haven't reached that level yet, but I hope you don't reach that level. But like Justin Welsh, for instance, another well-known LinkedIn guy, if you DM him on LinkedIn, an Autobot hits you with, "Hey, I don't check this inbox. Send me an email at hello@justinmichael or justinwelsh.com."
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, the guy is like at a level where he can't even use LinkedIn because he probably gets way too many DMs. Way too many people want his time. So that's incredible that you're authentic and on LinkedIn and approachable. Fun fact, everybody out there, Scott's a good Twitter follow as well. I follow you on
thanks.
Twitter. We interact there. I love it. Well, thanks, man. I really do appreciate it, and looking forward to staying in touch.
All right, Kevin. Talk soon, man.
If this episode is interesting to you, please share your thoughts on LinkedIn or Twitter. Tag me, and I might just feature your post in an upcoming episode of the Sales Career Podcast. Or, if you want to connect directly, go to hoppconsultinggroup.com, and we'll find a way to work together. Cheers.